Welcome to Transport Vlog. My name is Paul and I'm on platform 1 at Clyde Station, and this is the platform that the Carlingford trains used to depart from. So in this video I'm going to show you what is left of the old Carlingford line. So from Clyde, the Carlingford line headed north, serving Rosehill and then on to Camellia. And there was also a branch that headed east, and this was the Sandown Line. The Carlingford line then continued north, serving Rydalmere, Dundas, Talopia and Carlingford. From Camellia to Carlingford, the line is being converted to light rail as part of the Parramatta Light Rail scheme. And if that interests you, then check out my Parramatta Light Rail video series. There's a link to this playlist in the description below. So in this video, I'm just going to cover the section from Clyde to Camellia. This is platform 1 at Clyde Station, and it looks like it could still be in use. Except that it lost its number on the platform building. It still has a next train display, and this platform could be used to terminate a train from Central if required, as the junctions to the main line at the east end are still in use. However, on the western side, the platform 1 track is not connected with the main line to Parramatta, and as far as I can tell, it never has been in the past. Interestingly, the up main line that serves platform 2 still has a turnout for the Carlingford line. But the one from the down main, which serves platform 3, has been partially removed. The overhead wires are still in place, and they continue for a short while, ending just here where the line curves to the right. I've obtained permission from Howie's Rail Videos to use some of the footage of his Clyde to Carlingford driver's eye view video. It was filmed on the 30th of December 2019, which was just a few days before the line closed on the 5th of January 2020. A link to his channel is now appearing on the top right, and links to this video and his channel are also in the description below. Coming into view shortly, on the right side of the rail corridor, is the corner of Sutherland and Marsh Streets, and this is my first viewing point. As you can see, the tracks are still in place, but the overhead wire equipment has since been removed. And the tracks are still in good condition, and there's a reason for that. And that's because this part of the line is still being used, but only for 2 track inspection vehicles that live in this grey shed. Here is a view of the tracks going towards the Parramatta Road, which is my next vantage point. This is looking south with the Parramatta Road behind me, and as you can see, this is where the Carlingford line now ends. This track closest used to be the down line to Carlingford, and the track finishing further back was the up line to Clyde. And this track inspection vehicle, coming out of the shed now, will shortly go over this turnout. That will allow it to access the down Carlingford line and then the rest of the network via Clyde Station. There are 2 of these track inspection vehicles, and they both live here. They were introduced in 2014 and each vehicle costs $20 million. They monitor the track for potential cracked or broken rails and also monitor the overhead wires for any possible faults as well. And they do this using a system of cameras and laser sensors. To learn more about these vehicles, check out this video appearing on the top right now, with a link also in the description below. So this part of the down Carlingford line, beyond the turnout, has effectively become a shunt track. Although this might seem hard to believe, the Carlingford line used to cross this busy part of the Parramatta Road on a level crossing just here. Let's see this in action. Notice all the road vehicles waiting patiently, and the Parramatta Road crossing signal box on the left, which used to be here but has sadly gone. And this is how the Parramatta Road now looks without the level crossing. Besides the blue fencing, the lighter coloured pavement and this new part of the traffic island are clues to where this level crossing used to be. So as this track inspection vehicle heads south for an adventure around Sydney's rail network, it's time to see what remains of the Carlingford line on the other side of the Parramatta Road. So whilst the level crossing signal box has gone, there are some remains of the track bed. With weeds now encroaching, it's hard to imagine this as double track, but it was. One thing that hasn't changed is this building on the right, which is part of an industrial estate. On the left is Duck Creek, which the line went over on this bridge. See if you can spot the creek on the right. The line then went under 2 M4 motorway bridges, and the second bridge has a shared path, which is my next vantage point. So that's here on the map, and you can access this shared path from just here on Martha Street, close to the junction with Kendall Street. When walking on this path, do look out for cyclists, especially when stopping to look at the views or to take photos. Once under the M4 bridge, check out the views of Duck Creek on both sides. Then continue around the corner, up the hill and over James Ruse Drive. And then look on the right side and you'll see what remains of the track bed. In the distance is the James Ruse Drive bridge, and that is my next vantage point. I'm now on this bridge on James Ruse Drive, and this has some wonderful views of the old Carlingford Line track bed. And that's here on the map. When I first came here in January 2022, the overhead wire stanchions were still in place. And there were lots of rails being stored here that were probably for the Parramatta Light Rail project. This short bridge goes over a Beckett's Creek. Now 1 year later in January 2023, and the overhead wire stanchions had gone, and I think the bushes on the right have been missing the trains as they've all gone brown. Beyond this fence, the track bed disappears, and the reason for this will become apparent very soon. Back to the old train footage, and this is now crossing a Beckett's Creek. And now going under James Ruse Drive. The road on the right is Unwin Street, and this is my next vantage point. So I'm now on Unwin Street, and behind me is a Sydney Metro construction site which is over the former Carlingford Line track bed. And this is going to be for Sydney Metro West, where there's going to be 2 lines that are going to come into the new Clyde maintenance facility, which is going to be in this area. There will actually be 3 tracks, as I forgot the shunt track, and they will use some of the old Carlingford Line track bed before heading into the maintenance facility. And because level crossings and driverless trains are not a good combination, Unwin Street will be realigned to run over the approach tracks. So in the future there will be track and driverless Sydney Metro trains going into maintenance and stabling sidings that will be on this old industrial land. If you would like to see what used to be on this land and learn more about the Clyde maintenance facility, then do check out this video appearing on the top right now, or by clicking the link within the description below. By January 2023, the old track bed under James Ruse Drive had become a temporary car park for Sydney Metro construction workers. Back in April 2022, it looked more like an old railway line. And who remembers the good old cassette tape? Back to January 2023, and now looking north, and it's looking a lot wider than the original track bed. And that's because the trees and grass verges have since been removed. In the distance is this new structure. Keep watching to find out what this is, and in front of that is the Rosehill Station footbridge, now back to 2019. So the line continued, with Unwin Street on the right and James Ruse Drive on the left. And my next viewing point is on Unwin Street, just before these sheds. It's where Unwin Street bends to the right. At this location, it looks more like the remains of an old railway track bed. But as you'll see shortly, this is now turning into what was left of the old Carlingford Line, as a shallow trench has now been excavated where the track bed used to be. This is to allow the Sydney Metro maintenance facility access tracks to begin their descent, as the future dive site structure will start around here and continue through Rosehill Station. This was from the same location in November 2021, and at that time the track bed was storing orange pipes for Parramatta Light Rail, and the bushes on the right prevented me from seeing more of the old line. And this is looking back down the line towards the James Ruse Drive bridge. This was in June 2022. And if you're wondering where I filmed this, it was from platform 1 at Rosehill Station. I think it's time for some more of the old train footage. So the bushes on the right have since gone, and notice the wooden stanchions for the overhead wires. I wonder if these are the original ones from when the line was electrified in 1936. Just before Rosehill Station, the line became single track. And all that traffic on the left is on James Ruse Drive, which continues to follow the rail corridor but a little further away. This building on the right has definitely seen better days. Next is a pedestrian crossing with the white fencing, and then the start of platform 1. So the sad looking building has now gone, but the white level crossing fencing was still there in June 2022. And this is what remains of this crossing. So now back to the old on-train footage, and notice how long platform 1 is. However, this train was heading for the much shorter platform 2 via this turnout coming up, and trains in the opposite direction also use platform 2. Let me explain. So at the turnout that you just saw, the Carlingford Line branched to the left and became single track, which meant that platform 2 was served by trains in both directions. The line straight ahead that served Platform 1 was the start of the Sandown Line, which last had a passenger service in 1991. So as Platform 1 had no access to the Carlingford Line, you might be wondering what it was used for. Well, behind Platform 1 is the Rosehill Gardens racecourse, and on race days special trains would run from Clyde and perhaps even from Central too, and terminate in Platform 1, leaving Platform 2 free for the Carlingford Line services. The station entrance to Rosehill Gardens racecourse is now in view on the right. And notice the additional white fencing on Platform 1, that was probably for crowd control. This is the old station entrance, which is at the end of this large car park that is used for the Rosehill Gardens racecourse. This and the footage that follows was taken on a Rosehill Gardens race day in June 2022. Since the station closed, the footbridge and parts of Platform 1 have continued to be used to access the racecourse entrance towards the end of this platform. So from the footbridge you will get a wonderful view of Platform 1 and the track bed as well. This is looking south. Here is more of Platform 1. It's all fenced off, but on this day I could walk along the edge of it and peer in through the gaps in the fencing. Now looking back towards the footbridge. And this is now the south end of Platform 2. Now looking north, and you can see how long Platform 1 was. It could handle 2 8-car trains. All the lights and PA speakers were still in place. Now it's the very north end of Platform 1 with the racecourse entrance behind me. The Bidgie Bridge for Parramatta Light Rail is in the distance. This is the Platform 1 shelter, which was pretty basic. And on the left is the rest of Platform 2, including the shelter. This platform was much shorter and accommodated a 4-car train. The footbridge is heritage listed, but will sadly be going, along with the platforms, as the dive site structure for the Sydney Metro West Maintenance Facility access tracks will be in this area. It will be recorded digitally and on film for archiving purposes, and some of the heritage fabric from this bridge may be kept as well, and hopefully this video will be a historical record for years to come. This is looking north from Platform 1. In its heritage listing, linked below, it's described as a steel riveted through Warren Truss footbridge on steel trestles and channel iron stair stringers. And if that makes sense to you, let me know in the comments. This and the next few clips are all looking south. An important feature of this bridge is the depth of the truss. That's the diagonal supports that create the triangular shapes on the sides. And on this bridge the trusses are tall enough to have top bracing that is over people's heads. And I hope all this technical jargon hasn't gone over your head. It's of local significance as the earliest example of an overhead braced Warren Truss footbridge constructed for the New South Wales Railways. This is now in August 2022, so a couple of months later. The old footbridge is still there in the distance, however the track bed has since gone and is now covered with soil. And you can still see the remains of Platform 1. And there are a number of tree stumps. These are from the trees that were there in June. Notice the small embankment too. So those trees on the west side of the rail corridor have now gone, and this might be that small embankment. On the 1st of August 2022, access to the Rosehill Gardens racecourse via the old Rosehill Station closed permanently, so I'm glad I came when I did. I'll show you the new entrance a little later. And one of the reasons why this entrance closed was the demolition of the section of Platform 1 that served this racecourse entrance. And just beyond the demolished part of Platform 1 are the beginnings of what will become a deep shaft going underground. Here are some photos taken by John Bell during September 2022. These were from the Ridges Hotel on James Ruse Drive. Platform 1 was still very much intact, both in the middle and at the south end. And lots of earthworks were happening in front of this platform. And this is how the old rail corridor looked just south of the station. Thanks to John Bell for sending me these photos. So for the remainder of 2022, work continued to build this temporary 37-metre deep shaft. It will be used to excavate the spur tunnels that lead to the dive site and then above ground to the maintenance facility, using parts of the old Carlingford Line that you saw earlier. A big thanks to Sydney Metro for allowing me to use this part of their video. Link to the whole video appearing now on the top right and with a link in the description below. This is now on the 2nd of January 2023 and the footbridge was still in place, and the removal of nearby trees enabled me to get this different view of it. More of Platform 1 had been demolished, along with parts of Platform 2 as well. Interestingly, the shelters and PA speakers were still there. South of the footbridge, the old Platform 1 is disappearing, with a new concrete pavement taking its place. And a similar pavement has appeared on the other side of the old track bed. And this new structure that I pointed out earlier is the acoustic shed. It's in the process of being built, and when completed it will be 20 metres high. It will minimise noise, light and dust, and is made of sound absorbing materials. This is now on the 12th of February, so about 6 weeks later, and I'm a bit worried that something that was here might have disappeared. And looking through the fencing, I realised that these 3 concrete supports were for the old footbridge. Now my understanding is that it's been dismantled but not demolished, and it's being stored somewhere on the construction site. And this will allow time to preserve some of its heritage components before it finally goes. Keep watching to find out where it's been moved to. Both platforms around the footbridge have also gone as well, and it's getting increasingly difficult now to see any evidence of the old track bed and station. Now looking into the Rosehill Station construction site from the James Ruse Drive bridge. As you can see, lots of earthwork is happening where the track bed used to be. And it's looking pretty unrecognisable now. What is recognisable from here is the acoustic shed. And this has progressed rapidly in just 6 weeks and is now much larger and more complete. So now back to the old train footage and departing Platform 2. About here is where the construction of the underground shaft is taking place, and that's why the north part of Platform 1 was removed first. And around here is where the new racecourse entrance is. So racecourse visitors now use this path which crosses the old track bed and then goes around to the right and runs along the edge of the old rail corridor to the same racecourse entrance. The line then continued with a very gentle bend to the right. The bridge in the distance is for Grand Avenue, and the white fence coming into view on the right is for this level crossing. And this is how this part of the track bed looked in August 2022. This was taken through a fence on the new racecourse entrance path. The fence in the distance marks the boundary between Sydney Metro and Parramatta Light Rail. This is from the Grand Avenue bridge looking south, and you can see some of the remains of the track bed, including ballast for the Sandown Line track. On this side of the boundary fence, a path has been built over part of the remaining track bed. It goes to the old level crossing that I pointed out from the train footage earlier. And here is this crossing, which goes to another racecourse entrance. And here is a closer view of this new path that goes to the remains of the track bed. The path continues north of this crossing and broadly follows the alignment of the old Sandown Line. And by February 2023, a substation for Parramatta Light Rail was being built alongside this path. Now back on the Grand Avenue bridge, and the old track bed between the new racecourse entrance and the boundary fence is now full of stuff. And this includes what looks like part of the old Rosehill Station footbridge. And I reckon this is the section that linked the footbridge to the entrance and car park. And these look like the old stairs. In these zoomed in clips, some of the depth is lost, so these parts of the footbridge look shorter than they really are. So back to the old train footage, and you can see how the lines now diverge as they go under the Grand Avenue bridge, with a small hill in the middle now separating them. There are more wooden stanchions along this bit too. And now another level crossing, and then Camellia Station, which has now been completely demolished. So from here to Carlingford, the line has been converted to light rail, and that has included making it double track. The station has been replaced with a light rail stop, and I'll show you that in a moment. Thanks again to Harry's Rail Videos for allowing me to use this driver's eye view footage. You can watch the rest of this video via the link appearing on the top right now, and also via the link in the description below. Now looking from the Grand Avenue bridge, and all these new tracks are part of Parramatta Light Rail. The line comes from Westmead and Parramatta via the new Bidgie Bridge over James Ruse Drive. It then makes a sharp left turn to serve a light rail stop called Rosehill Gardens. This new shared path just west of this stop is where the old single track used to be. And the original platform and station building used to be where this shelter for the westbound light rail line now is. The lines on the right lead to the Parramatta Light Rail maintenance facility and use part of the old Sandown Line, and in the future they will continue to Sydney Olympic Park. The small hill has been replaced with this larger mound with freshly planted shrubs, and the old Carlingford Line track would have been close to the fence on the left. And the old Sandown Line would have been towards the right of this hill, close to this new shared path. So by February 2023 there was very little left of the old Carlingford Line. There's the section between Clyde Station and the Parramatta Road that is still open and used by the two track inspection vehicles. Then between Parramatta Road and the James Ruse Drive bridge the track bed is still there, and it's been largely untouched since the removal of track sleepers and overhead wire structures. Major earthworks started on the section along Unwin Street in February 2023, so the track bed is no more. And of course Rosehill Station has now gone, and the old rail corridor north of the station has become an antique store. So the section in brown is the only part of the old Carlingford Line that is still in use, or hasn't changed much since the line closed in early 2020. I will do a separate video on what is left of the old Sandown Line in the next couple of months, and I would love to include some photos or video clips of when this line was open. So if you have any old footage that you're happy to share, please email them to paul@transportvlog.com. And in return, if you have a YouTube, website or social media channel, then I'll happily give it a mention in the video and in the description. So now you know what remains of the old Carlingford Line. If you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, give it a thumbs up, do leave a comment or question below. I'd love to know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't done so already, and also consider joining me on Patreon. There's a link with further details in the description below. So I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in the next one soon. Bye for now.